Okay.
Okay, you good? Should
I'm
I?
good.
Okay, I'm gonna give myself 3 seconds just to like. Welcome to the Great Honey Podcast. I'm Maya, the Amerlin bee.
All right, no, it was one more time.
Welcome to the Great Honey Podcast. I'm Maya, the Amerlin bee.
I'm Marcel the Gleeman.
And this is a show where we talk about all things Wheel of Time. We're gonna start off by following what's happened in the Wheel of Time show so far, and try to keep things as spoiler free as we can throughout this.
We'll try. That's the key.
Yeah, we'll do
part.
our best. Should we start by introducing ourselves?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Marcel, and I play guitar, and a lot of that guitar playing kind of found my way into the Wheel of Time fandom, because I would play songs and pretend to be a Gleeman uh, while I'm making the songs up, as if I'm living in the Wheel of Time world. And by that, I kind of got introduced to a lot of the fandom after having read the books about 5 years ago in the wake of Game of Thrones ending and needing something else to dive into. So as soon as I got into the first book, I was pretty much hooked. But definitely by the second or third book, I was, pretty dedicated to finishing the series, and I pretty much, went through it in like a few years. So, but yeah, that kind of is where I'm at. I finished all the books and the prequel book, so it's all 15. So I'm pretty knowledgeable, at least from that perspective.
Was that before or after they announced the guitar switch
It
from
was
like the
it was
Gleemans playing this guitar instead of the harp?
I think it was definitely it was before. And my
Nice.
idea for it was that I was is if if I was one of the if I was one of the characters being an emo or guitar busker on the street playing like as a Gleeman, in our world it'd be kind of similar. So that's kind of where I got the idea for it.
Yeah, I have not finished the series yet, but I read the first book with like over audiobook, and I was not paying attention because it was kind of my like soothing driving book that I was listening to, and about like 2/3 of the way in, I got super into it, but I was lost and just like kept going. And then I continued reading The Great Honey, and I finished it while I had COVID. So also don't
Oh
really
wow.
remember, not The Great Honey, The Great Hunt. Wow.
The
Uh,
Great Honey is our podcast.
that's us.
A play on The Great Hunt, the second book. So it works out.
Yes. It just explained our podcast name on accident. Yeah, so I finished it while I was sick. So also didn't really remember
Yeah.
that much. I don't remember that much from The Dragon Reborn, except that I was like really into it. And then I felt a little bit more like lucid and with it in terms of like post early 2020 life when I started
Right.
The Shadow Rising. And I don't want to spoil anything, but they went back somewhere from the first book, and I realized that I just like needed to start over. So that's where I'm at in the books.
Okay. Was
But
that
yeah,
how soon was that before the show came out?
I think that they announced it sometime after I finished The Eye of the World.
Okay.
Like they announced the show was happening, and then they were like 2021 or 2022 is when it's coming out, and I was like, that's in a million years. So
Right.
I was actually kind of like surprised when like November 19th rolled around, and I was like, oh wow, the show's like happening.
I actually was not surprised. I was waiting with bated breath for every new piece of information that would come out from like a random clip here or some news and some outlet somewhere. So I was pretty I was pretty probably unhealthily following it closely. So but it's been great.
Yeah, I was scared it was gonna get canceled, so I just like didn't get to invest just
That's
because of
probably a
that.
good choice. Because like I mean, I was following it before COVID, and then right when COVID hit and all the lockdowns, they closed the production down like during partway through the season after they had to shut down for everything. And I was kind of, because there's been other shows that have like been canceled for less stuff, like so I wasn't sure, but luckily they were able to come back and finish it up and actually get approved, or I guess they got greenlit for a second season. And in theories, rumors out there that they're actually already greenlit for a third season. So it's a good show to get into if you're in it for a decent haul, because I think they're planning on 8 seasons. At least
Okay.
it's a 14 book series, and 15 including the prequel. So it's like it's a decent amount of material to get through.
I was just reading like an interview with Madeline Madden, and she's like fully prepared for her entire 20s to be dedicated to being Egwene, which I love that for her.
I do
So,
too. It's a good person to be.
um, so yeah, I guess should we now start kind of summarizing what happened in the show so far? I think
Yeah,
just to get an overview of where we're at. So I
I
guess as of
think
recording, episode 7 has not come out yet.
right.
Yes.
And it's been so far I've been really enjoying it because I have no idea what to expect. Even though I know the story all the way through, I have no idea what's going to happen from episode to episode, because they're adapting it as if they've read the entire series, as opposed to Game of Thrones where they were doing book by book, or they'd merged a couple books. But like with this show, they're actually like doing it from the perspective of knowing the entire series. So they are pulling stuff from third, fourth books maybe, or I know at least the first, second, and third book are included. So who knows exactly what they're going to pull from throughout this first season. So it's been kind of cool to kind of watch how they adapt it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to like get past where I started and kind of see all of the things that they're like laying the groundwork for. It's like there's like a few things I'm picking up on where I'm just like, I know where they're going with this, and I understand why it's changed for the show. And it's very
Right.
cool.
Right. The story itself, starts, and it's kind of Tolkien-esque, and I think it was the whole story was kind of, written by Robert Jordan to be kind of derivative, at least, of Lord of the Rings in some ways. And the Two Rivers is the Shire, and that's, basically of the Wheel of Time series. So it kind of has that feel to it. Kind of even when you're reading it, right? It's just like a jolly sort of place. Everyone's like, living their best life, no worries in the world. And of course, all manner of evil is about to descend upon them, and it's all going to be ruined. The Two Rivers, I don't know, for these characters, it's such a like sort of simple place. And I think that part of it like really starts to get you into these characters immediately, because there's characters who are tired of the simplicity and want the adventure. And they maybe all do to some degree, but some of them are really stabilized by the Two Rivers and don't want to leave it. And I think that's kind of what the show is trying to get across.
I loved the braiding ceremony. Like, I just love that, like, it's like Nynaeve, who's like her like mentor, which they like establish really
Right.
early on. Um, and like, I feel like they did a really great job of just like introducing Egwene as someone who can just like get into like she can just like adapt to anything that you throw her
Yeah.
into. Where it's like at first she's like, oh no, like what do I do? And then she's like, oh wait, no, I know what to do. I feel like that was like a perfect introduction for her, and also like a really great way to kind of, I guess, kind of introduce the Two Rivers and like what their culture is like. Cause I feel like the like women's circle and, well, I guess it's like all of the different like female governing bodies of all the different cultures are kind of like very central to like how a place is,
Right.
if that made any sense.
No, it does. It's kind of like they introduced this kind of right off the bat, where she's going through this ceremony and kind of puts all our focus on her. joining, the women's circle and like,
He's a
getting the
woman
braid.
now.
And like that's such a, in this, because you get Nynaeve too, who's introduced here, and she's the wisdom, which is essentially like there is a mayor also, but Nynaeve is the wisdom, which is basically holds more power in the Two Rivers. And she's more of a she's essentially the leader, the protector of the Two Rivers, and she takes that she takes that job very seriously.
Also, like, I know we said we weren't going to talk about the books that much, but I like the change of not having Nynaeve be introduced through like the men complaining about her being
Yeah,
bossy and younger than everyone else. Because she's 26, which is really young for a wisdom. Like, usually
right,
they're much older. So, like, she's like constantly being undermined, but like, instead they just focus on the fact that she's like a well-respected person in the community and a leader.
right.
So I like that too.
um I don't know, how did you feel about the friendship? I feel like, in the book for me it kind of did. I don't know, it's weird how you could tell they've been childhood friends, but in the show they're kind of more like these are like good closer friends. I don't know, the ages are
Yeah.
different from the book to the show, so they're younger in the book, so they've aged up their friendship a little bit, it seems.
Yeah, like they're like adult friends where like they have that like childhood bond, like that like almost like a family like feeling towards each other and like look out for
Mhm.
each other, but you can tell that they're all like in like really different places in their lives. Like Perrin has a job and a wife.
Right. A
Like he's
job
not
and a wife, my god.
yeah. And then Rand is just like, I don't know, I guess he's just kind of like living with his dad and like, I don't know, he just seems like content and like not
Yeah,
like concerned with anything. Like he like, I mean, it's not really different from the books. He just kind of always sees himself as being a sheep herder who will like one day marry and
right.
live happily ever after in the Two Rivers, like literally like doesn't want anything more in life.
Right.
And
I
then
think that's fair, yeah.
yeah. And then Matt, I guess, is like he just seems to be struggling.
Yeah. I think I think in episode 2, because we're not limited to episode 1, but like in episode 2, no, 3,
Yeah, we
when
are
they're
technically supposed to talk about the whole show.
we're just talking about the whole thing. Matt does say that he's a horse trader, which, I don't know we necessarily are supposed to believe him, but maybe he does have a job, but I don't imagine horse trading is a lucrative a thing in the Two Rivers. Um,
Technically, what like Matt's dad does do is like take care of the
mhm.
horses.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he's a horse trader. I think they're like maybe their family trade is horse trading, but it just doesn't either. It's just they introduce his dad as like a drunkard and like a womanizer sort of. So maybe he's just gambled their money away. And I don't know, but they don't look like they're doing very well because you see Matt's house is like disheveled and like his daughter or his sisters seem to be like, unkept, and like, their house seems to be less, than everyone else's that we've seen. So
Yeah, those poor babies.
I don't know.
Yeah, but like, yeah, and you see it with this costume too. Like, they did a really good job with the costuming for like all five
Yeah,
of the characters we've introduced so far.
yeah. I think so I think, so we kind of get this, this introduction to them as like, you know, pairing with his wife, having that structure, and like, but though it does seem like there's something going on with him and his wife, and his that's a change from the books too. And we're not going to go too much into every change, but the uh the change of parent having a wife, it's kind of different. So I don't know exactly what the plan was. At least as far as we've gotten in this series so far on episode 6, they haven't really elaborated on what's going on with his wife, whose name is Layla or Lila. Um, and it does seem in the first episode that she's just like, I don't know, despondent or very, she misses Egwene's ceremony and like seems to be, just kind of reserved or like withdrawn from everything. They never really elaborate on what's going on there. Um, so that I don't know, that's sort of, they set up that, and then they set up where Rand and Egwene have like a pretty strong relationship. They're actively dating. And I think that's great. Honestly, this is a I'm not gonna go, I swear I'm not gonna go too much into the changes, but like they definitely have a relationship, Rand and Egwene, in the book. But this was actually really refreshing, to see the relationship play out like this, because they aged it up. And in the books, it's more like they're kids.
Yeah, and I think it
Um,
makes more
you know,
sense when Rand is really upset when Egwene has the opportunity to become a wisdom, and then later in Aes Sedai, like why he's like, oh, woe is me about
oh
it. It's
well,
because
yeah,
he's like planning a life with her, and she's just like doing her own thing.
right. I mean, I don't know. It seems to me when she decides to be a wisdom, that's actually the end of their relationship, or at least it's not outright over, right? I mean, they still have feelings for each other, but it does seem like it's kind of that's it, right? Because once
Yeah.
she becomes the wisdom, I guess she can't marry or be with anybody, as Rand says sullenly when she tells him that she's going to be a wisdom. Moraine showing up in the end is kind of not really like how Gandalf shows up at all. They kind of, some of the stuff gets diced up, but I feel like, when she comes, it's like, okay, now the adventure is beginning. Like she kind of brings it into the end when she comes in, and then her and Lan kind of show up. What did you get of that? Like that impression of that entrance?
Thought it was hilarious because she's just like immediately just trying to find all the 20-year-olds in the room.
I know she's just like scanning the room. It's like, okay, I know exactly who I'm looking for immediately.
And like I can tell that like the characters are like kind of creeped out by them in a way, or just like intimidated, or I don't know if that's like the best way to put it. But then like I love Rosamund Pike, so I'm just like I trust
Yeah,
her with my life already. So it's kind
right,
of interesting. Like I feel like for most of the Eye of the World, when I was listening to it for the first time, I was not really sure if you're supposed to trust her, but I was just like,
right.
I trust her.
By episode 6, if you're looking at it as just a show only, right? No context
Yeah.
from the book. Do you trust her? 'Cause that's like kind of one thing that I'm wondering. Like, would I trust Moraine? She comes to my village, like, and most of these characters, I think maybe save Egwene, are hesitant to leave, or are downright wouldn't leave, right? I think with her, or believe her.
Yeah.
And I think they have reason to not believe her, but like,
Mhm.
by the end of the first episode, we know that they kind of have to go because the Dark One's after them. But are they wise to trust her? I mean, I think they all question it, mostly Rand, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and Nynaeve.
I guess I wouldn't want to go with everything she says. Like I would want to question her, although I think I'd
Right,
be afraid to. But just the idea of just having someone be like that, like I don't know, able to like you would just be safe. So I don't
right,
know. That would be my one thing is just like I'm gonna stick with the lady who can shoot fireballs, as Matt
right.
said.
You can't really trust her, but you kind of have to. And they kind of put them in that situation very well. They're fitted right in that, like in that in between. Like we can't trust her, but we can't not follow her, because otherwise we're all doomed, essentially. I think she does a great job of like kind of not giving all her hand up, which is very Moraine, very keeps everything close to the vest, but giving them enough to like be like, okay, I guess I should follow this person. But yeah, I think Rosamund just does such a great job as Moraine. Like she's one of the main characters. I think the first one who was introduced or cast as one of the characters, and I immediately saw it. And I think it's been like through the season so far, she's just been nailing it. Like she's definitely Moraine to me.
Yeah, I feel like the way I first heard that the show was happening actually was her Instagram post of her just like I think she was in like Shanghai or something, just holding like a copy of the Eye of the World, just like looking out into a city. And I was like, oh my God, like that's Moraine.
I think I saw
That's
that
so
one. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And then we have Lan
Land.
as well, which I think again just I've loved it. I've loved him so far since like that in the introduction when he comes in. The first thing I thought, like when he like, you know, drops his hood and like says, I'm Lan Mundragon. Just kind of like immediately was like, this is a little cheesy. But the more like it went through the episode and like you get to know him and know that he is just like a stoic, really like into himself. It's well, he's confident, like he's just so sure of what he can do that it makes sense that he would come in and introduce himself like that. And I kind of like the subtle changes to him too. Because in the again, in the book, he basically doesn't like emote a whole lot or say
Yeah.
much. And the show couldn't, I don't think could do that. And not have him just like not be like a robot standing in the corner. So I think they had to kind of, and I think it really worked because I kind of like him more in the show than I did in the book. So so far anyway. But he's such a cool character, and I think Daniel Henney is doing such a great job in this role too.
Yeah, I feel like the fight scene, the winter night fight scene establishes their like bond in like a really cool way where they're just like synchronized and just like fighting like in like perfect sync, and even though there's
Right?
just like complete chaos and like they're not talking to each other or anything, but they just like both know what to do.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I think that's like that choreography there was just amazing. Like everything Land was doing was just supporting Moraine, which is like so right for like the ice, like how I imagine those fight sequences would go. It's just like obviously Land isn't the like he's not the powerhouse. He's basically defending her so that she can destroy as many of the Trollocs as she can because she's not
Yeah,
invulnerable, which we find out very quickly where she gets like
yeah.
a knife thrown right at her chest or whatever, which they just kind of like doesn't even face her at the moment, at
Oh,
least.
that
It's
was
just
so
like
funny. It didn't even seem to phase Land. He was just like, we got to think of something else.
right. Where this isn't gonna work. There's like a bunch of stuff in that first episode where I'm just like, I don't know, it definitely did not play out the way I thought it would from the trailer. Because I thought when she calls the lightning down, that would be like that was her final attack. Like that was the last thing. But no, she just pulls out like a bunch more different like fireballs and she's yanking out the building stones and throwing that at them. And it's just like, yeah, it was really well done. So that whole scene and that whole sequence was really good. And it kind of just for that part of it, it's like I don't know, the channeling is so instrumental in the books. So it's they had to kind of show that in a way that I guess is nearly as I don't know if you can be as compelling as how they describe it in the book, but I think the show is getting pretty close. I don't know. How do you feel about the channeling or maybe just like the visual effects when it comes to channeling?
Not gonna lie, when I was watching their trailers, I was a little worried that I wasn't gonna like what it looks like because the
Yeah,
like lighting at night was kind of weird. But then
yeah,
I was watching an interview with Rosamund Pike and Alvaro Morte, is that his name? The guy who plays
yeah,
Logain. So Rosamund Pike was talking about how like when she was reading it, like the description of it is like something you feel in your body. And so it's like, how do you like act something happening in your body? And so she like
right,
decided to do like a dance kind of gesture thing,
yeah,
which I know like bothers people, but I really like it. And I like that everyone has like a different style.
yeah. I
Like
kind
as you
of
like
I like it.
see more. Yeah.
I think it worked out where I don't know. I mean, they had to. It's a big thing in the books that the Aes Sedai use their hands, so they almost had to do that. So
Yeah.
the way they did it made it more like a dance. I think is actually way more entertaining to watch than what I had in my mind, which is just like them like flipping their fingers around and like waving their arms. This is more of like a coordinated sort of like thing that interestingly enough, they incorporate into, like, I'm gonna throw in the White Cloaks here because the White Cloaks in the, basically don't like channeling. They don't like anyone that can channel, but particularly they don't like Aes Sedai. The White Cloaks, and they are literally like stringing up like an Aes Sedai and burning her. I think it's the first scene we see, like, because they call them witches. So it's funny that they actually burn one. But it immediately sets them up as a more like dangerous thing because they definitely are not nearly as dangerous in the books. But the fact that Valda, who is the White Cloak, that the main White Cloak that we meet, who is apparently a what is he, a
Dinner.
questioner? That's right.
Yeah.
And he basically says one of this Aes Sedai told him that, like, the use of their hands, once you learn the way to channel by using your hands, it becomes like something you have to do to channel again. So he started by binding their hands or cutting them off so that they couldn't use their hands to channel. So that was interesting because I was wondering how he could catch them, So if he like was able to restrain her arms, then I guess she couldn't channel. Um, so that was an interesting way to play on that because I don't think they really utilized that much in the book. So it was an interesting way to show that. But it also showed how evil and cunning the White Cloaks could be.
Yeah, and like apparently that's not something that happens for everyone.
Right.
Like it's like a crutch for some people, and Child Valda seems to understand that like,
Right.
yeah. For listeners, we're bouncing around a bunch because we're just talking about the show so far, and we'll
Yeah.
do deep dives. So yeah, if
I
someone's
guess
like
we should kind of
confused.
it kind of just got started like going because I was like, maybe we're going too linearly, but then I'm just like, we can kind of pull in some stuff, as we
Yeah.
talk about the characters. But
Yeah. I mean, we were just introducing everyone, right?
right. The way they've introduced the channeling, to tie back to that, I think I like it. And everyone that's been channeling, like when you get the male channelers, when you get Logain in there and he's using the tainted or the I think they call it corrupted. They have,
Corrupted.
I don't
Yeah.
know if they say it like right, but it like it's
They call it the
corrupted or whatever.
corruption, right? Is that what they
Right.
changed it to?
They
Good
call it,
choice.
yeah. Probably a good choice. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for me to stop saying it because, like, for some reason, I never understood that tainted was like a word that was to be laughed about. So, like, when I don't know, I come from the legal world, so like, tainted is like a legal term. So in the courtroom or in the discovery process, they'll say something is tainted. So I'm just used to it. So like when I started reading the books and they were like, you know, I'm on the forums and stuff, and everyone's giggling at tainted or the tainted half of the one power, and I'm just like, I don't necessarily get it,
I
but I
don't get
mean,
it.
but now I've been in like now I understand, and I will try to start saying corruption.
Some kind person sent you the Urban Dictionary link.
Right. When they're showing Logain channel and they show the corruption has like kind of taken over the way he uses it, and you notice he
Yeah.
doesn't use his hands. I think that's going to be a certain thing we kind of follow too, because it's like it looks like, at least from what we could see, he didn't need to use his hands necessarily. He just kind of stood there and walked
And he was able to do
Jesusly.
it bound too.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um, One thing I noticed is that you can still see like the not corrupted one power, like in like Logain's like channeling stream.
right.
So I'm wondering if that's like a sign that he wasn't like completely like lost to madness or something. Like I'm like curious to see if they'll develop that more.
I'm
Like,
I'm curious too because I think the madness, you see it you see it affect the first guy that the Red Sisters channel or track down, and the first guy who's apparently a male channeler, and in the first scene of the series in episode 1, and
so
he is.
random.
I know, right? I didn't necessarily like that they had that right at the beginning, but
Yeah.
he apparently is seeing this other person there that's not there, and that's how the madness affected him. But Logain actually has like the corrupted ooze or whatever kind of manifest as what he sees. So it's interesting because it's like you can see when he channels, it starts out to be white, like what we see when the Aes Sedai channel. but once it kind of starts to flow, then that black stuff kind of creeps over it. I don't know if they're
Mhm.
going to continue to show it get worse or more black or more corrupted the more mad he gets. But I guess he got gentled, so we that won't we won't see that at least. But I think I don't know. I
Or
think
he
it's
won't be
supposed to
the
represent
last
that.
male channeler, we'll see, right?
I mean, obviously, I think they're showing you that that has to be an element that plays into it, right? They're not going to just have Logain be the one, and we've taken care of him. So yeah, I think they're going to continue to show it that way, and I wonder if it'll get more corrupted looking, or will the way it just maybe it'll stay the same and just kind of the madness or whatever will start to kind of look more real, because I don't know, like the what
Oh
Logain saw
yeah.
was more like to oozy black stuff, whereas the guy saw like a fully formed dude.
He was like a whole person. That's a good point.
So I don't know, maybe it showed the fact that it still looked black. Maybe it was like, okay, that's why he didn't succumb to it, right? Because the voices from that black ooze were telling him to kill the king of Gildon, but he decided to actually befriend him, or at least bring him to his
Yeah.
side. So maybe that's how they'll represent it, or maybe it just looked cooler. I don't know. All right, so episode 6, the Flame of Tarvalin. That's the name of the episode. What did you think of this episode?
So one, I loved it. Two, I really enjoyed getting just like the one POV of just Moiraine and kind of just getting her perspective on everything that's been happening. She's just like in the background of every episode, but we don't really fully understand. I mean, I don't know if we ever can really fully understand what Moiraine's doing, but like to the extent that she is willing to like show us as an unreliable narrator kind of like what her goals are and why she's doing what she's doing and like why she grabbed these kids from Emmons Field. Like I just really loved it. And I loved getting to like meet the Amerlin seat in this episode because I know she's not actually in the Eye of the World. She's not even in the second book, is she? Or she is in the second book. But
Yeah,
like
she's in the second book.
you don't know that they're like friends, maybe more than friends until like a long time into the series. That like a lot of the times that when they're like talking to each other in front of people, they're doing like an act.
Right.
Like I don't know. Like it's nice that that was like established in this episode. What else did I really like? I also just liked getting everybody back together finally and the
Yeah.
reunion, even though we
I
very
thought that was good.
awkwardly say bye to Matt at the end.
Matt is kind of just decided not to join the rest of the team, which,
I don't blame him. I would not go in the ways.
I kind of got the sense that it might be more because of the dagger, because the dagger made him so like weird that maybe he hadn't recovered all the way.
Yeah.
Is why he decided not to go. Or it could just be he wanted to get back to his sisters or something. But it was
Yeah.
an interesting way to end the episode for sure.
Yeah. One thing that I was seeing in reviews, going back to like the Matt with the dagger thing, is people were saying that like he wasn't healed from the dagger that quickly, but I don't think he's fully healed yet. Like I have a feeling he's gonna like go get the dagger again and then like have to be healed again.
Right. I'm wondering if it's either, yeah, like either his reason for not going with them is because he can't leave the dagger, or maybe it's like he is still corrupted by it in some way. But either
Yeah.
way, it would keep him from going. But I kind of feel like he's gonna go get it. I mean, I can't imagine he's gonna walk back to the two rivers. Like, what is his
Yeah.
plan?
I mean, anytime Moraine says don't do something, everyone always does the opposite. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
assuming that yeah, he's probably gonna go grab it again.
I think this episode is like, I don't know. I think what I loved about it is the White Tower politics
Mhm.
machinations begin, because we see
Yeah.
Leandrin doing her stuff, where she kind of, I don't know. It looks like Moraine and Alana decide to like back Leandrin so that she doesn't get as rough of a penance or as rough of a punishment for, gentling Logain
Yeah.
before standing trial. And Moraine and Alana kind of back her up and say like, yeah, we didn't have a choice. He was going to kill us all. But then Leandrin's like, well, you didn't tell the Armelin about this Wilder, or they don't call them, like, basically they call her the most powerful Chandler they've ever seen, which is interesting because I didn't necessarily know if that was going to be how the show played it, but it looks like she's the most powerful Chandler they've seen. And she basically calls out Moraine for not telling anyone about it. And then Moraine's like, well, I didn't know necessarily. I just kind of suspected. But then that whole thing twists it all on Moraine. And then so Moraine has to like, bow down. And then we learn that like Swan and her have this arrangement where they're actually in cahoots and they're working towards finding the dragon together. But she had to put on this whole display of like Armelin, seat justice, which, perfect. All of that stuff is just like so White Tower-esque. Um, and then like Moraine gets to turn it back on her later, where she's like, you know, I know about whoever you've been seeing in North Harbor, which is apparently some man, which, as a red sister, wouldn't be looked well upon by her other red sisters because, they don't like men, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so I think
I
it's
love
what
how
you've
that
gotten
was
from
enough
her.
to shut her up too.
Yeah, she does seem like she's going to be an enemy to Moraine. And I think they establish like, the Aes Sedai are kind of like, they maneuver and they manipulate. And I think this episode does a really good job of that. But the only thing that I will say that I kind of like didn't like about the episode is like, it just was too fast. I feel like stuff got cut out, it seemed to me, or at least, I don't know, the stuff about like when they just go to the I don't even know if they gave it a name, but it's a way gate. I don't think they know. I think they said like it was Loyal says that it's an entrance to the ways, but they never established what it is. And so like they just kind of like, she has a plan with Lan, and Lan's supposed to get, them all out there, and Loyal, I guess, brings Perrin and Egwene, but they don't really explain it. And then it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going in. And it's just like, I kind of was like, my first thought was like, why would any of them do this? Like, it seems like a chaotic, very deadly thing to do, and they all would possibly die. And like, that's all the like, incentive she gives them.
Yeah.
So, and it was just that sort of kind of, I feel like there was a few things missing, a few scenes missing to like get them on board with it.
She did say that the ways, or there's going to be plenty of time to talk on the way to the eye of the world. So maybe they'll explain things a little better, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot that happens like going into next episode. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like, maybe we just will find out eventually.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting. I think they, by the way, like Loyal in this episode didn't get a lot either. So I'm like, my one question is like, I kind of know why he's there from the book, but I don't know that anyone else would understand why he's also there. But I think he will be instrumental in like kind of explaining some stuff. He just seems, the way that the character is being played, he's going to be super knowledgeable and maybe will help with. And I hope they give him a lot of time to talk because I love that. I love the actor, so I hope we get to hear more from him.
One of my favorite parts was when like he was meeting with Moiraine and he like throws like a little jab at Lan for rushing him. Where he's like, I don't understand the hastiness, but I'm here.
Yeah, I think he nails that. I mean, again, this is the one thing with every episode. The acting is just out of the park good. Because I think everyone is the character, especially at this point in the season. So maybe we can kind of transition to, I think me and you, our best, character from that episode was Swan in her
Yeah, I
introduction.
was just about to say, yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
I loved the trial scene and how like when I first watched it, I was like, wow, she's really mad at them. And then like my second time watching it, you can see that like she's like saying two things at once, or like her like face is saying something completely different from like what her mouth is
Right.
saying. And you're
Yeah.
supposed to like kind of read all those like subtle things that are like happening under the surface. And it was just like so cool, like her just being like, yes, I'm the Amerlin seat. I'm like so powerful and like everything goes, but then I still have my secrets like that
Right.
you guys can't know. And like, I don't know, the idea that like even like the other Aes Sedai could like turn on her if they find out about like her and Moiraine's like plan, which like I still don't
Yeah.
fully understand what their plan is. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah. Me
as far
neither,
as we know,
actually. No idea what they're doing.
but like that
But
they could still be
yeah.
stilled, which is like the women's equivalent of being gentled.
Right. And I think the way she's introduced, I think it's good too, because they have this young version of Swan,
Mhm.
already knowing how to channel and like helping her dad who's lost his hand. They essentially kind of show this sort of like you can be not, they don't really say it, right? Because they basically, you know, show her as like, a fisherman's daughter, becoming then like the very next scene we see her as the Armelin seat, literally the most powerful like person in this world. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, they didn't say it, but they kind of showed like it doesn't matter where you come from. And
Yeah.
it really seems like that part of her is still so important to her, the whole
Mhm.
the whole being the daughter of a fisherman. And like, and we see like when her and Moraine have those like those intimate scenes where she's like calling her like clever as a pike, and like, using all the
Puffer fish.
the puffer fish line. I think that was all just very, very well done. And I think
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, it made her character so dynamic so quickly, because it's just like you get introduced to her like making Moraine like bow down and kiss the marble, and it's just like, oh crap. I
Yeah.
immediately was like, oh no, because I didn't know how they were going to play it at first, because they could change anything. But I thought maybe she really was angry with Moraine for not being in the tower. The best scene, I think, at least my favorite, is when Moraine takes Nynaeve and Egwene to meet her. I think
Yeah.
that's the real Swan. Like I think
Mhm.
it's less. I mean, she's still acting as the Amerlin, but I think it's more her, and the way she like interacts with Nynaeve. It's just gold. They all like completely understand their characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah, that
love
was
that
such a
scene.
good scene. I was watching the like making of thing about it, or like some making of thing, and they were talking about how that was the last scene they filmed before they got shut down for COVID,
Oh really?
and had to like stop filming. And so
Huh.
like some of the looks on like Egwene and Nynaeve's faces, or Madeline and Zoe's faces, are like probably like literally them being like sad about having to stop filming.
Right.
um which is
Yeah.
like, I don't know, it's like just kind of like crazy to think about that context, like with like them trying to like explain to them that they're about to go on this basically like death march to the eye of the world to like attempt to like save the world.
Right. It's weird because it's like I love that scene, but then like the plan still eludes me. I'm like, what are you guys gonna do? Like, you're just gonna go trout? Like, you're just gonna go right up to the Dark One? Like, she says he's weakened, um, and that they're going to basically be able to destroy him potentially with one of these candidates for the dragon, which is still like, as powerful and as like, intelligent and like, conspiring as they've made Moraine and Swan. I'm just like, is this the best plan? I don't know. It just seems, I'm
I
hoping
think
maybe
it's
they'll
a
kind of
plan.
elaborate a little bit more about what they're gonna do. But seems kind of weird to just go straight to the Dark One at this point.
I mean, I feel like the only thing I can think of is that they're just hoping that maybe the pattern will work in such a way that it'll resolve itself like immediately
Right.
if they're close to each other, because that's sort of what they've read and studied. um, and like but like I don't know, Swan was saying she's like been having dreams about the Dark One, and there's a lot of other people who've been having dreams about the Dark One
Right.
throughout the show. I don't know if they've like explicitly said that he's the Dark One, so maybe I'm spoiling something. I'm really sorry if I am,
I don't
but
think I don't I think
sketchy
she
dude with eyes
says
on fire. Like, I don't know. I feel
right.
like,
I think she says the dark one is touching dreams, like in the second episode. So
yeah,
I think that's fair. But I think too, this is the thing that I'm like, okay, here's my head canon working. Maybe Moraine is still holding stuff back even from Swan, because
I think she is
she might
100%.
know that like, okay, I can't necessarily trust Swan with the whole of my plan because she just said that the dark one's in her dreams, which we know she knows is a bad thing. So I don't know. Maybe she Moraine knows a little bit more that she's gonna give into her about her plan. That maybe, you know, because it does seem out of character, at least from what we've learned about Swan, to be like the Dark One has given me this dream, so we should just follow it. It's just like unless they're
Yeah.
establishing that she has some ability that her dreams are something worth following. Otherwise, it's just like you guys should know that the dreams can, the dark one can touch your dreams. Like that's
Yeah.
established in episode 1 or 2. So it's like maybe you shouldn't just listen to them. So I don't know. I think there's something going on there.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a trap. It just sounds like a trap. But I do think that, because I was like thinking about how, like, the first time I watched episode 6, I was like, okay, like, this is where seeing Moraine with like the people she trusts the most. And this is her at her most like authentic, honest self. And then I think there's a point where she figures out who the dragon is, and it's before she goes and visits Swan's like room.
Okay.
So I think that like she's keeping that from Swan.
Okay. I
So
think
that's
maybe.
my theory. I think she figured out who it is, but she can't convince them to go into the ways without bringing all of their friends. So
I completely agree. I feel like she knows, but she needs to take them all because if she's like it's this one person, then the other people are going to be like, you know, if they don't have to come, then is she going to be able to get the person that she says is the dragon to go? And I think and they set it up that like she's not telling them the truth, like, or at least she's not telling them the whole truth. Because like I think Egwene asks, are Rand and Matt okay? Like when Moraine meets up with Egwene and Perrin at the Yellow Sisters,
yeah.
and she's like doesn't tell him, even though we just saw the scene where she had seen them, right? So I think you're onto something. I think there's definitely something she's still keeping close to the vest, which would be very Moraine. Like she just can't say, or even to like her closest allies. I bet Lan doesn't even know.
Yeah. I'm like really dying to say who I think the dragon is from the hints that the show has given, but I
Right,
also know who the dragon is, so I've been like looking for the hints. So
right.
I don't know, but
I mean, there's so many ways they could play it because I mean, it's not set in stone that they're going to follow the books exactly. So
yeah.
who knows? I mean, they did throw out in this episode that it could be all of them, which
Hmm.
would be an interesting twist if they go that route. Which I mean, it could. So it's not necessarily a because the way they're kind of playing it out, it's just like they all seem important. So I don't know how important or how necessary because when Matt is not in the ways when the gate shut, she kind of just Moraine looks at him like kind of like gives him like a side eye, like as if like she could maybe get him, but she's like making a determination not to. I don't know if you saw that, but I don't know. Maybe again that's saying that she knows something more than she's willing
Yeah.
to let on. Maybe she does know who it is, or maybe she knows which of them it is. Because if it is
Yeah.
all of some combination of them,
He's like, well, that rules Matt out.
right? Yeah, I mean, she could just be like, "I'm riding the pattern. If he doesn't come, he's not. He's not it."
Very Dumbledore of her to just like trust that the chosen one will just make it no matter what.
Right. I mean, that's kind of where we have to like assume that's where it's going. I mean, with what we're giving, I mean, she might give us more information in the next episode, or we might figure out something more that kind of elaborates on our plan. So I don't know. So I guess, what are your predictions? I don't know how much I can predict, because like I don't know. Like, who knows what they're gonna do or change. So it's just like, I assume, if I'm just gonna guess immediately, I think going through the ways and having, I think we're gonna figure out. I think we're gonna get the dragon resolved.
Yeah, I think given the pace, like I feel like every episode is like very fast, even though it's an hour. I have a feeling we're gonna get the dragon, like we're gonna know who it is, and then the next episode will be like, I don't know. I don't know what the finale is gonna be, but
And what, I guess I don't think this would be a spoiler, right? Because we've both read enough, but I think we know they're going to change stuff. So
mhm.
and I think we can be pretty sure they're going to change what the eye of the world is from the book. I think we can be pretty sure about that, or at least I'm guessing. So anyway, so I'm going off of that assumption, because they haven't explained what it is, but I guess she does say what it is, right? She says it's where the dark one is sealed, right? So
But like I was
that's definitely a change.
the ending of the Eye of the World is like notoriously confusing though. So like either way, it's just gonna be like what?
Right. Yeah. I hope it's, I don't know. I know it's kind of a controversial opinion, but the way the first book ends is so crazy to me. It's just like, so what the heck? It kind of pulled me in. I don't know. I know most people kind of got like, didn't like the ending, but it really worked for me, because it was just kind of like, what the heck is going on? This is crazy. So I kind of hope the ending of the show it doesn't have, it shouldn't follow that at all, but it should. That would be kind of cool if it is kind of hectic and crazy, and like you're supposed to kind of not fully understand everything that's going on, but like, I don't know, that's a kind of tricky line to walk, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. So we'll kind of, I guess, leave it there, and then um we'll be back, I believe, this week or next week,
Yeah.
after episode 7, which is called All Along the Ways. Is that right? Yeah. So we are at the very least going to know what the ways are like, which you know, yeah, it could be just like a very, nice walk through that very
Yeah.
dark, desolate looking sort of
It
path.
reminds me the like little glimpse we get of it. It reminds me of the like I don't know if you remember the Disney Channel movie Don't Look Under the Bed.
I do
Like what
actually.
under the bed looks like. That was like what I
Yeah.
saw, which is like that movie scared me. So
Yeah. It was like lightning and like a dark fog, and like,
yeah.
it's just like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And I'm like, I totally get Matt's choice. It's just like, yeah, everybody could die on this journey. Actually, a good chance
Good
that you
luck.
all do. Everybody here might die.
Thoughts
But
and
let's go.
prayers. Okay. Thank you for joining us on our inaugural episode of The Great Honey. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Great Honey Pod, and The Great Honey as in DA on TikTok, as well as The Great Honey anywhere you can find podcasts, including on YouTube. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday. And until then, see you around.
See ya.
Bye.